I like bicycles for the same reasons most cyclists do. I like the feeling of freedom. I like the feeling of making my own power. I like the thrill of watching competitions at the world class level. I like that bicycles are great for fitness. I like being friendly to the environment. But the thing I find the most fascinating about cycling is how accessible and adaptable it is as a concept. Cycling can be anything to anyone. It can be a utilitarian tool, it can be a deep and complex sport, or it can be a part of an active social life, among other things. The aspect of cycling that gets the most exposure and marketing is obviously the competitive side. Competition is what drives the development of new technology, which drives marketing, which sells bikes, and keeps the industry alive. Bicycles have been around for a really long time. Starley's safety bicycle was developed in 1885. The principles behind bikes are really tried and true, and I see bikes as old as my grandparents coming into the shop that still work perfectly fine. So that used bike from 10 years ago that you're looking at will still ride great as long as it was well maintained. The new bike that costs a quarter as much as your dream bike will still ride great if you take care of it. For the most part, I believe there's no such thing as a bad bike. I do, however, believe that people should seek to educate themselves before buying a bike because you get what you pay for. A lot of people see bikes as cheap disposable toys because they buy bikes from department stores that are literally cheap disposable toys. The $99 Walmart special is only designed to last a year or two, so when the bike breaks after a year or two, it's working exactly as intended. Walmart wants to sell everybody a new bike every year if possible.
Just that.
For that same $100 or so, the same customer could go look at the brands available at a local bike shop to see what's good, and then buy a used good quality bicycle. Even if they pay $75 a year for a tune-up after that, which can be avoided with a little effort, it's still cheaper than buying a new bike for $100 every single year. And the brand name bike will almost always be more comfortable, more pleasant to ride, and more reliable. Even for someone who doesn't describe themselves as a cyclist, it's just good sense to look into options before buying a new bike. The same applies to cyclists who only want brand new, brand name bikes. Someone looking for a good, reliable mountain bike for entry-level racing or fitness might want a carbon bike with XTR components, but might actually be better off with a lower-level Dior or SLX group set, for example, on an aluminum frame. Carbon frames are amazingly reliable these days. There's no such thing as catastrophic failure anymore. But aluminum frames are also really, really good while being much more affordable. The current XTR level components these days feature electronic shifting, which is an absolute joy to work with and ride. It's a ton of fun, but it costs a fortune, and a slightly lower level cable operated group set might not be as awesome, but it will still offer amazing performance and possibly even better reliability at a much lower cost. Thanks to the trickle-down effect, mid-range bikes right now are using technology that was at the top level less than 10 years ago, so buying the best bike isn't always the right option. I say all this not just from the point of view of a guy who's wasted too many years working in a bike shop, but also from the point of view of a guy who got into cycling with a budget of absolutely zero. I started playing with bikes when my dad found a 24-inch chrome BMX cruiser in the garbage and brought it home. I spent a couple of years buying cheap bikes off Kijiji and from garage sales, stripping them for parts, and building Frankenbikes, or Frankenstein's monsters, to learn about bikes and discover what I really liked. Working on cheap bikes did a lot to help my confidence while riding the bikes. Because I understood the details of how the bikes worked, I felt more comfortable with them, like I trusted them more. When I wanted to get more serious about cycling, I chose to focus on BMX because good used bikes were cheap, and I still buy my BMX bikes used even now. The resale value on BMX bikes is noticeably lower than other bikes that retail for the same price, so a 5-year-old BMX bike that's built with expensive brand name parts can cost as little as a new entry-level bike. I enjoy doing tricks on the bikes, but I also enjoy riding them as regular day-to-day bicycles. They're not the most ergonomic bikes, but they're quick and reliable as urban bikes for the same reason that fixies make great urban bikes. They're solidly built, affordable, have very few unnecessary components to break, and they're very agile. They're just great minimalist bikes. I still love my BMX bikes, but they're not the most popular style of bike among the cyclists I hang out with. To spend more time riding with my friends and to get more involved with the local bike community, I picked up a used mountain bike last year. It was a Jamis, but make and model are irrelevant here. What matters is that it cost me $200. It's a 26-inch wheeled aluminum hardtailed mountain bike. It had 3x9 gearing, a Manitou coil fork, and cable-operated disc brakes when I got it. It honestly did great. It stopped, pedaled, and shifted nicely, and I didn't really need to change anything. When I did eventually change it, I only upgraded parts after I crashed and broke them because the modern parts are just plenty affordable. When the drivetrain got stuffed into some rocks, upgrading to 10-speed was only marginally more expensive than using new versions of the old 9-speed parts. When the brakes wore out, basic hydraulic brakes from Shimano were only marginally more expensive than a mechanically operated brake from Avid at the time. When Dan didn't have a bike, I sold it to him as a great first mountain bike. When he took over the bike, he upgraded the fork and wheels not because he needed to, but because it was easy for him to find a fantastic deal on used 26-inch components. 26-inch components are super cheap now that 27.5 and 29-inch bikes are a thing. When all's said and done, between the two of us, we've spent about the price of a new hardtail mountain bike with 3x9 gearing, but in the end, the bike is a 1x10 mountain bike with hydraulic brakes, with a RockShox pike, and a dropper post. Well worth the effort in my opinion. When I sold my old mountain bike to Dan earlier this year, I decided to buy a new one. Now, I work at the local bike shop, so the price I paid is irrelevant, but what matters is that bike shops have access to more bikes than they can possibly stock, including leftover bikes that the distributor has from previous model years. I ordered a Rocky Mountain Fusion 940 from 2017 because it was on sale at the distributor, and that meant it was on sale for me as a customer. Anyone can do the same thing, and most bike shops will be happy to help because the discount on old bikes can be passed on to the customer without cutting into the shop's margins. It's a win-win if you don't see a bike that suits you in stock at the bike shop. When I was deciding what bike to get, I really wanted to get one of Rocky Mountain's Vertex models, but they were all out of my price range. I settled on the Fusion, a mid-range model, and I honestly haven't regretted it. I don't race the bike, but I push it pretty hard. I like jumping it, I like making it drop off things, I like making it go over rough things. All of the stuff that you wouldn't expect a recreational level bike to handle. Now, I've put slightly wider tires on it and changed the handlebar for one with different angles for comfort, but I haven't had to change anything else. I've barely had to do any maintenance on it, and I was expecting to have to do a lot of work. I got the bike in the spring, and after a summer of use, it's only recently had to have the wheels trued and had the derailleurs adjusted, and the brakes even still work like new. I'm really impressed with the capability of what is a cheap bike by today's industry standards.
That was an animal, I think.
So if you're looking for a good, reliable, fast, enjoyable bicycle, whether it's new or used, and whether it's for competition, for utility, or for recreation, you get what you pay for. but you don't necessarily need anything like the modern breed of competition-level bikes. Cycling author Eben Weiss, aka the Bike Snob, compared buying a bike to buying a pet. Sure, you can get a purebred that costs a fortune, but for the most part, it would probably be best to adopt. Like pets, there are plenty of bikes that need homes and someone to care for them, and once they have that, all parties involved are usually happy and will stick around for a long time. If you can't adopt a bike, don't look for a specific bike, but look for a bike shop where you can feel comfortable. One you can trust. Bike shops provide services that enhance cycling, like free service or custom fitting, which makes the price of brand name bikes well worth it if you don't want to work on your own bikes. If you do want to work on your own bikes, a good bike shop can be an amazing resource for information that you might not be able to find online. Finding a friendly bike shop where you're happy to bring your bike is much more important than exactly which bike you get or how much your bike costs. So whatever kind of bike you ride or you're looking to buy, don't feel pressured to use your bike in any specific way. It's your bike, so experiment on it. Find what works well for you. Older or less expensive bikes can still be amazing machines, so you probably don't have to spend big money to enjoy cycling.